to another edition of Pints and Punditry and another weekend update after a great weekend of European football action. And, I gotta be honest, it didn't start off all that amazingly, but there's a reason we wait for all the games to take place before we do these videos and then post them on Wednesday once everything's had a minute to digest. If you don't already, make sure you subscribe to us here on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at TotalFIFACM and hit that like button for me if you would. It does go a long way. What an ending to the weekend. And when I'm watching games throughout the weekend, I make notes about what I want to talk about. I sort of make a punch list of the topics I'm going to put in these videos, what I can make other videos about. But you have to wait until the end of the weekend because the Monday night game goes right to the top of the list of things we have got to discuss about the weekend that was in European football, and particularly in the Premier League, because that game between Liverpool and Manchester United just blew the roof off of the entire Premier League table. Now, I want to make sure we're not overreacting here, because there is just going to be a ton of knee-jerk reactions to what happened, and Manchester United is back, and Erik ten Hag got it figured out, and, all this stuff because they got a 2-1 victory over Liverpool. Listen, they played great. Manchester United looked fantastic, and it goes to show you that he's qualified to coach in this league. And all of the original knee-jerk reactions of, is Erik ten Hag capable of coaching this team, were all just complete reactionary bullshit. But let's not get too high on Manchester United just yet. They didn't start Cristiano Ronaldo. They didn't play their captain, Harry Maguire, and were better off for it. So clearly this is not a team that's in good shape. But they did play some youngsters, Jadon Sancho with a goal, and it showed some life. On the other hand, Liverpool, the question all week now is going to be, what's wrong with Liverpool? Are they finally falling apart? And that's reactionary too. Listen, they're not off to a good start, right? They drew against Fulham. This is a bad loss when they get Manchester United on the road when they're down. But if anything, they really got the short straw here, because it wasn't just Manchester United is down. They were at rock bottom, right? And there's no place for them to go but up. And then United gets to go home, play a Monday night game, right? Everybody's got a couple of pints in them. They're fired up. The fan base, and give credit where they're due to that United fan base. Boy, did they show up. The atmosphere at Old Trafford was off the charts. And Liverpool couldn't match the intensity early in the game. And it's hard to blame them. That's an almost impossible setting to go into and try to get points. And they almost managed to pull off a point at the end with a late Mo Salah goal. But, that's a tough situation for Liverpool to be in when they needed a win too. And yeah, Manchester United is down, but they're only going to stay down for so long. That team has too much talent to be sitting there with no points after 2 games. And so they were going to get something, and at some point they were going to wake the hell up and get out of their funk and start to play. And Erik ten Hag, to his credit, mixed up the lineup, took Fred out of the starting lineup, made a couple other changes, and it worked. It worked. It rejuvenized the team. So, we got to watch these extremes, and you're going to hear all kinds of extreme reactions about both clubs all week, and it's already going to be obnoxious. The truth is almost always somewhere in the middle. Is Manchester United a relegation zone team? No, of course not. Are they as good as they looked on Monday night? No, almost certainly not. They're somewhere in the middle. Same thing with Liverpool sitting near the bottom of the table. Is that them? No, of course not. Are they still a top 4 team? Yes, almost certainly. Are they still in that 1-2 echelon with Man City? That remains to be seen. I don't know that that's a given. And Arsenal may be replacing them, because Arsenal looked fantastic again and now sits atop the table after Man City drew against Newcastle, which we'll get to in a minute. So, the top spots are there for the taking, and Liverpool is not the automatic 1 or 2 the way they have been for the past almost half a decade. I think that much is evident. They need something in midfield. They need some athleticism in the midfield. Midfield has not been their strength during their dominant run. It has been the front three of Sadio Mane and Mo Salah and Roberto Firmino. Well, they've brought in some new blood and it hasn't quite gelled yet. Diego Jota, who was fantastic last year, is hurt and hasn't played yet this year. But it's still a strength. They'll be fine. Virgil van Dijk didn't forget how to be one of the best defenders in the world, right? So they're going to be good, but they could use some help in the midfield. So much of the game is played in the midfield these days, particularly against some of these better clubs, and they're lacking there. So they've got a couple weeks now to make a move, and they're going to need to get something done, but they're going to be fine. Let's not overreact to the start to this season. I'll bet they're still top 4 when it's all said and done, but their reign as 1A and 1B along with Man City, that might be over. So that'll be really interesting to watch. And if it is over, it's Arsenal that is stepping in. Arsenal looked good again. And now they've got 9 points after 3 games, and they're sitting atop the table. And they look well organized and potent on offense. Gabriel Jesus, I feel like I'm repeating what we said last week, but it's true. They're good. They are for real. They haven't had a lot of huge tests yet, but they're going to be all right when they do, and they're going to compete, and they are going to be a force to be reckoned with, without a doubt, in the Premier League. So, that's the key here. The key takeaway after this week is the Premier League is deep. It is so deep, and there are no, count them, 0 easy weeks. There are no off weeks, and I talked about some of this last week. It's even more evident after this week. Look at this Premier League table. We've got Leeds with 7 points, Fulham with 5 points, Brentford and Nottingham Forest both have 4 points in the top half of the table after 3 games. Who saw that coming? Conversely, at the bottom, you've got West Ham has a shutout. They've got nothing. Leicester and Wolves have 1, Liverpool 2, United 3, Chelsea only has 4 points. I mean, those are a lot of teams you assumed would be in the top half. Now, again, 3 matches in, this will all be topsy-turvy for a little while, but it just goes to show you that there's no easy matches on the schedule. And even the Fulhams and the Nottingham Forests of the league are going to give you a run for their money and are going to try and get a point. Leeds, who was only promoted 2 years ago and almost got relegated last year, is sitting there, in a European competition spot. They looked fantastic. Oh my God, they looked amazing. Just absolutely ass-kicking Chelsea. Jesse Marsch, say what you will about the American, coach, but he's got them fired up. He's got them fired up to play. Now, the super intense rah-rah managers sometimes burn out their team very quickly, so that'll be something to watch. Usually it's more than a year or a season, but that sort of intensity can wear on a team over time and is tough to sustain. But he does have some young players like Brendan Aronson and Tyler Adams, to name the Americans, who both had amazing games. And so they've got the legs for this intensity. But it'll be interesting to watch how that goes with Jesse Marsch. He's a super high-intensity, yeller, screamer kind of guy. And that can wear out its welcome pretty quickly. But not when you win. Not when you're winning. When you're winning, players are happy to put up with that. It'll be when they start losing that you'll see if they turn on him. But the point is, there are no easy games on the schedule. Look no further than Manchester City having to go to Newcastle. Now, St. James Park is never an easy place to play, but it was a lot easier when Newcastle wasn't that good, and if they had just recently been re-promoted to the Premier League. Now, we all expected Newcastle to be better with the infusion of money that they have, and they've had a good summer and made a lot of good transfers and have done some really smart roster building. But that was a tough place for City to go play. That place was rocking. And, it just goes to show. And City, to their credit, down 3-1, showed their class and their skill to come back and get a point out of that, and credit to them. But the fact that they had to do that, and that was probably the game of the week, and ended up being a 3-3 draw, and they had to pull a semi-miracle out of their ass just to get their point, goes to show you my point, which is no easy games on this Premier League schedule. And I think that's going to be a theme. You're probably going to hear me say that every week, say it over and over again, but it's true. The bottom of the table used to be some gimmies and some off weeks, and particularly that's important when these better clubs get into their Champions League and their Europa League schedule, or when we start having FA Cup games or Carabao Cup games and there's midweek games and you can't play your starters every week. Well, if you had Norwich or Watford on the weekend, maybe you play the starters in the FA Cup and then you play some of the backups on the weekend. You're not going to be able to do that anymore. It's not going to work. You're going to end up losing points. And so it'll be really interesting to see how Pep and Klopp and Tuchel and some of these guys manage that workload when the time comes, because there are just no gimmies on this schedule. The same cannot be said for a lot of the other leagues in Europe, and I was hoping that would not be the case, but it's looking like you're going to have more of the haves and the have-nots in the other four major leagues. La Liga last week, you saw Real Madrid and Barcelona both stumble out of the gate a little bit and fall on their faces in their first games. Not completely, Madrid still got their points, but it wasn't pretty. They both righted the ship this weekend. They both won cleanly, and it looks like they're going to be the two dominant forces in La Liga with a couple other players, and it'll be the standard story as normal. League One, PSG. This is a joke. They played Lille, who should be better, and absolutely just smoked them and have no competition thus far in the league. They're starting to run away with things already. Juventus drew a game that they should have won in Italy, in Serie A, but that table's starting to stack up like it should. Napoli's at the top, a little bit of a surprise, but again, we're early on. Your Milan teams are in there, so nothing really crazy happening there. And you've got the haves and the have-nots starting to separate themselves. And then there's the Bundesliga, which, I like the Bundesliga. I've got an affinity for it. It's fun to watch, but it's Bayern Munich and everybody else, and they're already out to ruin everybody's good time. Through 3 games, they got their 9 points. They got a 15-1 goal differential. They just won 7-0 against, a bad team, but, this isn't even going to be any fun. And it's a shame because it makes the whole league sort of pointless to watch. You've got teams that are competing for Champions League spots. You've got some storylines, but you really just have to start watching players unless you are a supporter of a particular team. But it makes it not that much fun for a neutral. And I'm trying to not be overly biased towards the Premier League here. Trust me, I'm trying. But it's the best league in Europe, and there's been some stats flying around recently about how the Premier League spent more than the other 4 leagues combined in transfer fees this summer, or something along those lines. And it's evident. It's evident. And sure, they've got the TV money, so they can do it. And La Liga has a bunch of teams that make terrible financial decisions and are cheap. So, this can't be shocking, but it's making for the best product in the world. And that's why all the best players want to go there. And so it's a real shame what's happening. It's no longer a top 5 leagues, and I may do a separate video on this, but you've got the Premier League, you've got the next 4, and then you've got your other leagues. And frankly, I'm not sure some of the other leagues aren't catching up with some of those 4. Bayern Munich is sort of just pissing on everybody's parade so far in the Bundesliga. I hope that changes, but when you look at what happened in one of the other games of the week, it doesn't look like it's going to change that much. Borussia Dortmund took on Werder Bremen and had a 2-0 lead in the 89th minute and managed to lose 3-2. They gave up a goal in the 89th minute, the 93rd minute, and the 95th minute in just utter disbelief. And, hey, this sort of stuff happens, and it happens to Dortmund, but it's unfortunate because Dortmund's one of the few teams that can go challenge Bayern Munich. And so you really want to see them, the best Bundesliga seasons of recent have been when those two are going neck and neck, at least into the spring. and making some of these games relevant. And I'm just afraid that's not going to happen. And the whole Bundesliga is going to be not worth watching. So hopefully we get some races in some other leagues, more than just a team or two, or more than just a two-team race, because otherwise it's going to be all about the Premier League, because that's going to be a 5 or 6 team race down the stretch, and really some relevant games. So that's what was worth watching this week. It was a really telling week as we hope to get some separation for some clubs. And I think at the end of the day, the Premier League table in particular is even more chaotic than ever. And I'll tell you what, I freaking love it. I love the fact that it's a mess. I love the fact that we got some bad teams in the bottom, or some good teams at the bottom and some bad teams at the top. And we got some small clubs stepping up. We got some big clubs falling down. I think this is just amazing, and I can't wait to see more of it. Once again, if you don't subscribe already, go hit that subscribe button for me. Like this video if you would, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at TotalFIFACM. Thanks as always for joining us on Pints and Punditry here at Total FIFA Career Mode.